My name is Brittan Stancil. I am the Forested Watershed Specialist for Northern Arkansas for the Forestry Division. I am based out of Batesville. So today I will be talking about some Forestry Division services as well as some landowner assistance. We'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'll give a quick introduction of myself. I'll go into why you should manage your forest. Forestry Division services, talk about prescribed burning, firebreaks, talk about the Stevens Burns program. And then within landowner assistance, I'll go into some cost share programs, specifically EQIP, go into the forest stewardship program. And then finally, I'll just talk to you guys about the consulting foresters and forest service providers here in the state. Okay, so I graduated in December of 18 from the University of Missouri, Columbia, with the Bachelor's of Science in Forestry, specifically Forest Resource Management. I previously worked at the University of Arkansas Livestock and Forestry Research Station here in Batesville. I entered into this position in September of 2020, so it's been about a year now. I've directed most of my work along the middle white watersheds in Stone, Izard, Independence, Fulton, and Sharp counties, so those dark polygons right there. In this position, I work closely with local NRCS offices and landowners to accomplish the implementation of forestry practices in priority drinking water and tributary watersheds in Arkansas. Most of the work being implemented by landowners in these watersheds consists of prescribed burning, forest stand improvement, pollinator habitat, tree shrub establishment, as well as riparian buffer installation. So we'll start with the Forestry Division services. The primary goal of the Forestry Division is to protect Arkansas's forests and those who enjoy them from wildland fire and natural hazards, while promoting rural and urban forest health, stewardship, development, and conservation for all generations of Arkansans. Now, we do this by responding to wildland fires, as well as conducting prescribed burns and providing technical assistance to private forest landowners. Now, each county actually employs 3 rangers whose duties include equipment operation, fire suppression, and public outreach. We also have a county forester who usually covers 2 to 3 counties. As you can see on the map there, the state is divided into 8 districts. Now, Northwest Arkansas falls into District 6. And within District 6, we have 4 different county foresters. As you can see their information there on the left. And of course, this information can be found on the Arkansas Forestry Division website, specifically your county forester's contact information. So something that I just want to point out to everyone before we get started is the Arkansas Forest Action Plan. So every 10 years, the division, along with state partner agencies, we reevaluate resource concerns to deliver the Arkansas Forest Action Plan. This allows us to have a targeted management approach based off recognized threats specific to our state's ecoregions and communities. So as you can see, the date there, this one was just completed in 2020. So following the completion just this past year, the plan outlines strategies, objectives towards forest management in priority landscapes. So the strategy provides a long-term, comprehensive, coordinated strategy for investing state, federal, and partner resource funds to address management priorities. So today, I just want to point out numbers 2 and 3 on the recognized threats in the Forest Action Plan. And again, of course, you can go to the website to view the entire document. It is pretty hefty. But like I said, I'll just point out number 2 and 3 today. So number 2 is lack of forest management. It's recognized as one of the most serious challenges in keeping forests as forests. Tree density is too high. Since settlement, the average number of trees per acre has increased from 70 to 150 in Ozarks. High tree density can lead to low resilience to biological disturbances like insect and disease outbreaks. And then number 3, we have water supply forest conservation. Water quality can be directly influenced by forest health issues. such as wildfire, insects, and disease and non-native species impacts. Riparian forests are particularly important in maintaining water quality in Arkansas rivers and streams. So again, just keep these number 2 and 3 here in your mind today as we talk about the practices. So just in general, Forestry Division services, we do a wide range of things. On the left there, we have a flyer from our Free Tree Friday that we just did this past year for Arbor Day. We have a ranger there giving away a seedling. And then up in the right corner there, that photo, I believe it was just taken in June of this past summer from a wildland firefighting training. Now this training that we do is administered by the state following the National Wildfire Coordinating Group's protocol. Forestry Division personnel receive the same wildland firefighting training that firefighters all over the country receive. So this allows us to assist different state agencies as well as the feds all over the country. Okay, so we'll get into our specific services here. We have custom fire lane construction and prescribed burning for a fee. So contact your local county forester to set up a site visit. Now these fees shown in the ribbon down here, these are without any sort of cost share at all. So certain aspects of a property do exclude us, the division, from doing a burn, such as proximity to smoke sensitive areas like schools, chicken houses, major highways, towns, hospitals. But like I said, you can enter into a contract with the state, the Forestry Division, and we will come out to your property. You will most likely work with the county ranger or your county forester, and you can delineate where you want your fire breaks, where you want your burn. So you should definitely contact, if you're interested in this, contact your county forester. And this is something that we get asked a lot. You do not have to employ the division for both services. So for example, you can hire the division for the installation of fire breaks, but if you as the landowner want to do the actual prescribed burn yourself, you're welcome to do that. Or if you want to hire a different forestry vendor, that's completely fine, or vice versa. So that's a great resource. Each county has 2 dozers, as you see right there. There's some exceptions throughout the state, but pretty much every county has 2 of those dozers at their disposal. Okay, and this is the Stevens Burn program. Again, you want to contact your local county forester to see if your property is eligible for this program. It is a free burn. These projects are not for site prep burns or land conversion. This program is to be utilized by private non-industrial forest landowners. If you fall 10 miles close to USFS lands, and that is what this map shows right here. In that bubble, if your property falls within that bubble, you are eligible for this program for a free burn. The burns are usually conducted by, it'll be either Forestry Division personnel, or it could possibly be Forest Service personnel. So again, if this is something you're interested in, go ahead and contact your county forester. A contract is required, but there is no acreage limit in this program necessarily. A property is evaluated by site-specific qualities. So it may be more plausible to burn smaller tracts if you can collaborate with neighbors to increase the acreage on that. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, we'll get into landowner assistance. There's some federal cost share programs. Now, the most applicable program for landowners in Northwest Arkansas is going to be the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, also known as EQIP, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Most EQIP contracts last 3 to 5 years, specifically those for forestry practices. And applications are ranked nationally once a year. Now, as a partner agency, the Forestry Division personnel, so your county forester, is available to conduct site visits as well as write your management plan. So this is important. Even if you don't get approved for an EQIP contract, your county forester can still give you advice and management recommendations specific to your property. And of course, you can visit the USDA's NRCS website to find county-specific contact and office information, which is what's on that little map right there. And some forestry practices that fall in this program includes tree planting, prescribed burning, fire breaks, forest stand improvement, wildlife food plots, water bars, ditches, low water crossings, etc. So today I am just going to touch on the most common forestry practices that I deal with. And that is going to be forest stand improvement, prescribed burning, fire breaks, riparian forest buffer, tree and shrub establishment. Now each practice has a payout rate. For example, forest stand improvement and prescribed burning, they pay a certain amount per acre, while fire breaks pay a certain amount per foot. And money amounts do vary depending on practice selected as well as the method. So you can also go to the Arkansas Natural Resource Conservation Service website to view the entire catalog. And I am just going to click on this so you guys can get an idea of what it looks like. So this catalog, it details all of the practices available. And what's nice about this being digital is some of these you can actually click on and it will take you to a YouTube video, which goes even further in describing what the practice is and what it does. So for each practice here, we have a description and then a purpose. So this is a great resource if you're just getting started and you're not really sure what practice you want, what you need, what you want to do. This is a good thing to look at. Okay, so I will get into forest stand improvement, also known as timber stand improvement previously. The basic principle of FSI is to remove unwanted trees to release better, more desirable species. Now, a specification of this practice is you must lower the stand stocking by at least 20%. You can lower it by more than that. You can go lower it 37%, even 50%. That'd be a lot, but minimum must be lowered by 20%. Now, this practice, it allows sunlight to reach the forest floor and facilitate the growth of forbs and grasses, as well as initiate seedling regeneration. The method of FSI depends on site-specific characteristics, such as topography, accessibility, species composition, stand size, and availability of equipment. So again, it's important to have a natural resource professional examine your property to make these determinations. And today I am just going to talk about, again, two of the most common methods of FSI. So we have chemical, we also have mechanical. Within chemical, we have single stem, also known as hack and squirt, which you've probably heard of. Now, within chemical, we also have ground chemical and aerial chemical. I won't talk about those because those are mainly used for site prep practices. Within mechanical, we have single stem, hand tools, and that's basically chainsaw. But we also have light to medium to heavy equipment. And what we see the most of is light to medium equipment. So that'd be farm tractors, and heavy is, the big stuff, masticators, mulchers, that doesn't get used super often because it is very expensive. Okay, so hack and squirt again, we'll just go deeper into here. Hack and squirt offers a target-specific, efficient, and pretty economical means for controlling unwanted vegetation. It can be accomplished by anyone comfortable enough and able to swing a hatchet and use a spray bottle. It targets, like I said, undesirable species and non-merchantable trees, usually between 1 and 6 inches in diameter. Now, the species that we, here in the Ozarks, that we mainly target is eastern red cedar, elm, ash, sweet gum, some hickories, as well as, of course, invasives. Now, your specific herbicide recommendations should be made by your county forester or your local U of A county extension agent. Now, this photo actually shows a hack and squirt job where dye has been added to the solution in order to keep track of trees that have or have not been treated. Now, hack and squirt is most effective when applied September through December. Don't apply during heavy spring sap flow, so don't apply in the springtime. Do not apply when trees are thoroughly frozen, and do not apply during severe drought. And again, effects may take up to 12 months depending on the application timing. So don't go out and hack and squirt and expect, you know, trees to be dead in the next few days. It doesn't happen like that. But again, this is a very, very doable method of management, and it is possible to do. You know, even if you don't have an equip contract, this is still something that's very doable. Again, forest hand improvement, we'll just talk about mechanical single stem chainsaw. Now, this is usually prescribed on non-sprouting tree species. So that's going to be pine and eastern red cedar. As you can tell by the photo, it is very labor intensive. It's usually recommended on areas classified as glades that have been overtaken by eastern red cedar. And then mechanical, we have, you know, light, medium to heavy. This method is sometimes preferable on very large tracts as it can be less time and labor intensive, and you can make more progress with large equipment. And some landowners that may already own equipment prefer this method. Again, you know, just consult with your local county forester or your NRCS office about which method you prefer, and they will definitely work with you. And of course, you know, when pushing burn piles and when in these stands with large equipment, just make sure you protect your leaf trees as accidental scraping and damage can weaken and kill standing trees. If an equipment operator is hired, they need to be very clear on what trees to remove versus what to keep. Now that last bullet there, residual basal area will reflect what is written in a management plan. Now that applies to all methods of forest stand improvement. It applies to hack and squirt and the chainsaw, to all of it. Your residual basal area should match what has been outlined and written in your management plan. So for those of you that don't know what basal area is, the basal area per acre is a standard measure of the size-density relationship in a stand. So your target basal area is going to depend on your personal objectives as well as site qualities. So again, it's very important to work with a natural resource professional, your forester, the NRCS office, to create your management plan. Okay, so we'll just touch on prescribed burning and fire breaks. So they like to prescribe burning in areas with a heavy fuel load, as well as, you know, having undesirable species and, you know, overstocked. Typically, it's the first burn on an area. A written, detailed, prescribed burn plan must be developed prior to the implementation of the burn. Now, a burn plan is separate from your forest management plan. It is usually developed closer to the time of burning, depending on who prepares it. Some NRCS offices have personnel qualified to prepare these burn plans, and some rely on us, their county forester, or their county ranger. Now, a burn plan, it'll have the specific weather details for, you know, kind of tailored to what you want your burn to accomplish. So that's why it's made closer to time of burning. And as far as fire breaks, they must be 15 feet wide if you are getting cost share for fire breaks. They can be as little as 10 feet wide. Now they like to plan fire breaks to tie into existing natural or man-made barriers. So if your property is surrounded by a gravel road or a county road or whatever, they may not put fire breaks in your plan just because they see that is already being a fire break. So it's just something to keep in mind when you start applying for practices. And again, fire breaks are paid on a per foot basis. Okay, so prescribed burning is a management tool. As I mentioned before, it's extremely important to know your objectives as a landowner before you do a burn, before you plan your burn. So are you looking to adjust species composition to favor certain wildlife? Do you want to improve the recreation and aesthetics of your property? Are you looking to kickstart natural regeneration of certain seedling species? Are you burning to improve your timber stand for financial gain? These are all objectives that are going to require a different type of burn, a different time of year, etc. So again, it's just so important to get with a natural resource professional, your forester, to get that advice and that help. And here's just a photo. Again, that's one of our dozers. I think that's in Independence County. And then on the right there, that's a fire break that we put in Fulton County. And that is a immaculate fire break. They may not all look that nice, but just for reference. Okay, so we'll get into riparian forest buffers and tree shrub establishment. They're pretty similar. So start with tree shrub establishment. This can be done to control erosion and improve water quality. Of course, tree and shrub species that are native and non-invasive should be used. Favor tree and shrub species that have multiple values. Always follow the recommendations outlined in your management and planting plan. Now, I know finding high quality native trees and shrubs is difficult. However, your county forester can definitely help point you in the right direction. For those of you that don't know, the Forestry Division also grows and sells forestry seedlings at Bockham Nursery. Trees are grown for one season, and when they become dormant in the fall, they are lifted and packed bare root for shipment to designated cooler locations. So you can go to the Arkansas Forestry Division website to order seedlings, as well as find a cooler location near you. Now, this is something else. The BWA has also started the Northwest Arkansas Native Plant Hub to hopefully make it easier for landowners in the state to obtain native shrubs and plants. And again, just work with your county forester or local NRCS office. It's the best way to select the right species for your site. Planting should be done January through March, depending on weather conditions. And again, you should follow the recommendations to have a successful planting. Here's just some photos from a couple different plantings. The one on the left there, that was a hand planting job. I'm sure because accessibility was an issue on that site. It looks very wet. And on the right there, that was actually done in a pretty small tract in Cleburne County. It was less than 10 acres. So that's just something to keep in mind. These planting jobs, they're not solely done on huge tracts. They can be done on smaller tracts as well. And here's that same planter right there. You can see the guy sitting in the implement on the back there. He has a bag full of seedlings, and at every click of that wheel, he drops a seedling into the ground. It's just something that's really neat. And we actually, the division is supposed to be at the planting site when the vendor begins planting. That way we can ensure the quality of seedlings, and we can ensure the planting specs are correct, such as the spacing. So we do like to be there when the planting starts. So don't feel like you're doing this all on your own. Forestry Division is definitely there to help. What we actually do is we'll show up the day of the planting, we'll look at the seedlings, and once the planter starts, we will actually take a few plots. And that just ensures that they're being planted the right density and the right spacing, because hardwood is actually going to have a different density versus pine. And then we'll also dig up a few of them to make sure they're not J-rooted, they're not planted too deep, not planted too shallow, etc. Okay, so we'll move on to the stewardship program here. So the Arkansas Forest Stewardship Program allows professional management at no cost to landowners. There's no contract involved, so it's very non-committal. You can develop a forest stewardship program with your county forester, and it's a great start in understanding your property, as well as your resources and your personal goals for your property. Now they can also serve as a guide to federal cost share assistance. Now there is certification or recognition for landowners completing good forest stewardship practices as well. So if you receive a forest stewardship certification, there is a competitive advantage when selling your timber. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the Sustainable Forestry Initiative. There's a little SFI sign on a lot of products that are involved in this. So that is also something to think about if you are looking to grow timber for financial gain. Okay, so who qualifies for the forest stewardship program? Any private landowner that owns a minimum 10 acres of forest. So stewardship plans include resource elements such as specific soil type, presence or absence of wildlife, forest health concerns, aesthetics, archaeological, cultural, and historic sites, as well as planning best management practices such as water bars, ditches, and roads. Now, the wildlife recommendations come from Arkansas Game and Fish private lands biologists, and stewardship plans are developed with your specific objectives and goals in mind. So it's an awesome program. Like I said, completely free to the landowner. Go to the Forestry Division website, and you fill out a simple application that gets sent to your county forester, and your county forester goes ahead and gives you a call, sets up a time. It's really that simple. Now, here's another aspect to it: who can prepare your Arkansas Forest Stewardship Plan. So the Arkansas Forestry Division actually compensates consulting registered foresters for preparing forest stewardship plans for private landowners. So as long as they are a Arkansas registered forester that has completed the forest stewardship training approved by the state, they can prepare your stewardship plan. Now the county forester must sign off on the plan as well, just to ensure quality. So just take care when selecting your consulting forester, and be sure to clearly convey your objectives to whomever prepares your plan. So like I said, they must be a registered forester, and that just means that they have certain educational criteria, such as have attended a Society of American Forester accredited college or university, or they have the required amount of experience, as well as having passed the Arkansas Registered Forester exam. So registered foresters are also required to complete a specific amount of approved continuing education every year. So again, it's just important that you seek natural resource expertise from a professional, and I'll get into how you can find these consulting foresters and forest service providers. You can go to our website. The Forestry Division offers a directories tab that allows you to look up both registered foresters in your county, as well as forest service providers, such as vendors, basically, for services such as tree planting, prescribed burning, fire breaks, forest stand improvement. And of course, if you have any questions, consult with your county forester to obtain a county-specific list of vendors. Now, as I mentioned, game and fish before, conservation is a joint effort, obviously. Partner agencies include Arkansas Game and Fish, Arkansas Quail Forever, the Farm Service Agency, National Wild Turkey Federation, USFS. Now, Quail Forever actually employs farm bill biologists throughout the state to assist landowners in creating habitat, as well as plan prescribed burning. Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, they also put on Learn to Burn workshops to help give landowners the skills they need to burn their property themselves, as well as discuss the ecological benefits of prescribed fire. Now, this is something that is newer, but I just wanted to bring up to everyone. The Prescribed Burn Association, it's a collection of local neighbors and landowners looking to organize and collaborate on prescribed burns. Meetings consist of discussions on the benefits of burning. It's usually led by a natural resource professional as well. They discuss the logistics associated with collaboratively utilizing equipment and skills. Prescribed burn associations can be found all over the country in different states and regions. You can look them up on Facebook to find one near you. Here's a flyer from a pretty recent one in Salem, Arkansas. That was actually a really big success. So I think it's a good program, especially for smaller landowners, to really work collaboratively on burning. Okay, and I'll go ahead and take questions.
There was a question in the chat earlier about, they were just wondering what that first website you showed was.
First website. With the NRCS?
I believe so.
This one?
Yes. So nrcs.usda.gov.
So if you go to the Arkansas Natural Resource Conservation Service website and you look up the Arkansas Conservation Practice Catalog, it should get you there.
Are there flyers for these programs for landowners?
The EQIP programs or the Forestry Division services?
I think either.
Either. So this website is going to be really helpful as far as the NRCS practices. You can go to your local NRCS office and they have an actual booklet that outlines all of these practices and it describes them. As far as what we offer, Forestry Division, you can go to our website and it has everything that I outlined. The stewardship program, as well as southern pine beetle. You know, our website really has a lot of good information on it.
Someone also said about bringing goats or sheep in to remove underbrush. Maybe just a comment.
I have actually seen, we've had a few meetings over goats for brush management. As far as it being a program,
Someone asked if the recording will be available later. Yes, it will. We will post it on the Beaver Watershed Alliance YouTube, and we will give everyone a link to that. Are there any areas that you would not recommend fire, such as an area too steep of a slope?
Yes, there's definitely areas where we don't recommend burning, and usually that is just when safety is an issue. But like I said, it is very site specific. All of these practices are incredibly site specific. So there's no sort of, one management plan fits all. That's not, unfortunately, that's not the case. But to answer that question, yes, there are definitely areas where we don't recommend burning. Just because it being too steep of a slope, it just depends. Like I said, if safety is an issue, then that would be something we have to talk about.
How can you determine if an area is a glade?
So the NRCS actually has a mapping layer of the state that outlines glade areas. But you as a landowner, you can actually tell if an area is gladed is if you can see the bedrock breaking through the soil. It's pretty simple. And there are a lot of glades in the Ozarks. Unfortunately, they are being overtaken by, like I said, eastern red cedar.
Okay, do you know if in the tree shrub establishment practice is reimbursement restricted to a size of tree? In the past, it was restricted to either a 1 or gallon potted trees or smaller.
Yes, there is a restriction on that, and that's just because they try to keep the dollar payout amount close to what they are recommending. And I believe it is still restricted to 1 or 3 gallons or smaller.
Another one, how often should a property be burned?
We usually recommend 2 to 3 years. It depends on the property, of course. Depends on how badly invasives are in the property. Depends on tree species, but overall, a good fire regime is 2 to 3 years, just to keep that disturbance.
So, like Brittan said, a lot of these sites are super site specific. You need to have a good qualified person to give you advice on a lot of stuff, and someone to come out there and check out the area to give you a solid recommendation. So here we have our email, a phone number for Beaver Watershed Alliance. Myself or a couple other people we have here would be happy to come out and do a site visit. We could work on a site assessment plan just to present to a landowner, kind of give them the first steps of if we would recommend you to speak to a county forester about prescribed burning, or to answer any sort of questions you have like that, or to come out and, even if it's just to ID some plants or talk about invasives or anything like that. And I see we have some more questions coming in. How does the burn affect the wildlife, Brittan?
That would be a really good question for Arkansas Game and Fish, but I will give a pretty simple answer. It depends on the intensity of the burn. We like to see pretty controlled, cool, early spring burns, and those do not negatively affect most wildlife. It's your hot wildland fires that happen, in summer and late summer. Those are the ones that are going to affect wildlife. So if you can manage it the right way, it doesn't have a huge impact on wildlife.
Yeah, and just to add to that, fires are Arkansas is a fire adapted ecosystem that includes the plants and the wildlife. So, with man suppressing fire, if a wildfire was to break out after you suppressed a fire for however many years, that's when you get these super intense hot fires that, make it on the news, and you see people talking about, oh, all the deer or something were killed by a fire. But maintaining a 2 to 4 year, natural fire regime is what allows for those cool, more mosaic, slow burns that benefit wildlife. All these, game and fish and people like Brittan and everybody, that's a big thing for recommending fire is for wildlife. People who want to manage a property for wildlife, a big part of that is prescribed burns that allows more of an herbaceous understory layer, like Brittan was talking about, to provide food and habitat for wildlife. So as far as wildlife, prescribed burning is a big positive for wildlife.
Absolutely.
Let me see, I'm not sure that's so much a question.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. And there are so many resources, and I know it can be difficult to get started. But I do want to press that there are resources out there available to you.
Yeah, thank you, Cole. And yeah, Nate is a co-worker of mine. He's very knowledgeable. So anybody who, if you think of any other questions or are interested in a site visit, we would love for y'all to contact us, email or phone. So with that, if there's no other questions, I'll say thank you to Brittan again. Thank you to Rob Beadle for sponsoring this, the Arkansas Forestry Association Education Foundation. And just really thank you to Brittan for taking the time to give us all this useful information. There's a lot of programs out there for landowners. So I think she talked about a lot of helpful stuff with the Stevens Amendment. That's a huge thing to be able to have 100% free program to come out and burn your property for you. So I think the more people that can hear about that, the better.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Brittan. If anyone else thinks of any questions, feel free to email us. It was recorded. It'll be put on our YouTube page. So tell all your family and friends, anyone who's interested, they can come check it out through Beaver Watershed website.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.